In this edition of Southern Newsweek, a top secret conference gets underway in Arrowtown. The pork pie charity run sees dozens of minis touring from Kaitaia to Invercargill. A record number of men, women, children and canines showed up for Dunedin's annual Town Belt Traverse recently. Kia ora, I'm Holly Buchanan. The Five Eyes spies are understood to have begun their top secret conference in Arrowtown this week. The spies, including the heads of the United States FBI and CIA, flew into Queenstown last weekend. Here's the latest from South Today Queenstown reporter Mina Amso.
Arrowtown was in full autumn splendour today, but tucked away in a conference room in Millbrook Resort are the top brass of the Five Eyes spy network, with the worries of the world on their agenda. The Five Eye Alliance involves the United States, Australia, Canada and New Zealand. All the chatter at the resort's hole-in-one cafe today was about the top secret meeting. And I can confirm that there's a high level of security. There are policemen and women in uniform and others in black puffer jackets with their earpieces roaming the resort. While there have been reports of snipers being in place, that is something I could not see today. When I left the resort, I was stopped and questioned by one police officer and 3 undercover security personnel, and I was warned that I would be trespassed if I returned. Earlier today, Prime Minister Bill English confirmed on radio that the top secret conference is being held in Arrowtown. Prime Minister Bill English is due at the conference tomorrow, Anzac Day, joining the ministers responsible for the SIS and the GCSB, Chris Finlayson. The Otago Daily Times reported yesterday on Sunday on the arrival at Queenstown of a Gulfstream jet from Hawaii carrying FBI Director James Comey. He joined CIA Director Mike Pompeo, who arrived from Wellington earlier on another Gulfstream. Both men, their entourages, were driven to Millbrook under heavy security. While the subjects under discussion at the conference are unknown, this is what people in Arrowtown today believed they should be discussing.
You do, but I don't. I just think it's something to do with the government or doing something, but I'm not very know much about it.
About what they're going to do about Mr. Trump.
Yeah.
Agree.
It's frightening.
What do you guys think?
I agree. It's pretty horrific what's sort of going on over there, and maybe they're trying to work it out.
The conference is expected to continue until the end of the week. I'm Mina Amso in Arrowtown for the South Today.
The South Canterbury Museum recently had a major exhibition upgrade. The South Today went to Timaru to check out the newly opened exhibition.
The new exhibition focuses on the history of South Canterbury during the period of European colonisation of the area. The project has been several years in the making.
This first stage of the upstairs part, the 1870s to 1940s, has just opened, and in there we're focusing on a number of different topics that interest local people and help show how South Canterbury was shaped.
The displays use large glass cabinets, informative touchscreens and pull-out drawers with even more items to see. This Panama Mary was associated with Hipe Tīmaiharewa, who in the 1870s was evicted with around 150 of his people from their Waitaki Valley settlement. The exhibition also covers a number of other historical themes.
One of the major themes is the change of technology. Technology has had a massive impact on farming during that period. So that's the period when we're looking at the rise of refrigerated meat going overseas to new markets. It's also a big change when at the beginning of that period, you had traction engines moving around the district processing crops. That changed massively when you had tractors coming in and those sort of technologies. Combine harvesters came onto the scene during that period as well. And that led to amazing changes in the way we processed crops.
The museum's hard work doesn't stop there. The staff already have plans for a further exhibition gallery covering history from the 1950s to the 21st century. Rudy Adrian, The South Today.
The 5th biannual pork pie charity run saw almost 60 minis make the trip from Kaitaia to Invercargill. Following in the tyre marks of the classic 1981 New Zealand movie Goodbye Pork Pie and its more recent remake. The group roared into Dunedin and Gore en route to the end of the road at Invercargill.
Nearly 60 minis going all the way to bloody Invercargill. The Pork Pie charity run emulates the trip taken by stars of the Goodbye Pork Pie movie and raises money for charity along the way. Event spokeswoman Tracy Brake says the run started on Good Friday.
We've got 58 minis. We started in Kaitaia on Easter Friday and we're rocking into Invercargill today. It's taken us 6 days to ribbon through the country. We're raising money for Kids Can, who are an amazing charity.
Brake says she and her husband are regulars on the charitable convoy for many reasons.
We love the car, we love the spirit of the event, raising so much money. We've raised, if we make our target, we'll have raised over $900,000 in total over all of the events for charities in this country. So it's a lot for us to be proud of.
In days gone by, all the fundraising on events like this would be through buckets and maybe a bank account number. However, Brake says they're near the $250,000 mark, using some new methods.
Also, money will come in over the next few weeks, so please check out the Give a Little page, type in Kids Can, and any money you can give would be gratefully received.
The convoy left Dunedin heading for Gore en route to Invercargill. And in the home of the Golden Guitars, a pristine mini estate was waiting for its factory mates to arrive. Some of the cars are more than 40 years old, which can provide owners with the need to change little things, like gearboxes and entire engines. However, the drivers of the English-made classic cars, along with a couple of the newer sort, enjoyed travelling the length of the country and hope to raise around $250,000 for charity. Daryl Baser, The South Today.
Every year, hundreds of people come together to donate their time to the local RSA in the lead up to Anzac Day. But after 40 years of service, one woman in the Clutha district has decided to take a step back from volunteering with her local.
This year will be the last year for one of the RSA's longest serving volunteers. Clutha District RSA Welfare Committee member Nolene Murdoch has been selling poppies and collecting coins as they come in for over 40 years.
Yes, I'll be 82 this year. I think it's time I gave up.
And while it might have been a few years since you've seen Nolene out there with her poppy donation bucket, she certainly still is involved with the RSA.
I went out selling the poppies on the street. I came into the office part of it. I've been in here ever since.
And no matter the weather, you would still find those volunteers out there collecting that money for the good old RSA.
Pouring rain it was, yes, but I wouldn't say there was snow. Oh yes, it was cold all right. You still got to go out and try and sell them.
And preparations are still underway for Balclutha's Anzac Day service, in which people will gather at the Balclutha War Memorial Hall at dawn and then travel down here to the cenotaph. And once everything is done here at the cenotaph, everyone will make their way to the RSA rooms, where for the first time this year the Clutha District RSA Welfare Committee will present 3 scholarships to a few hard-working tertiary students. Normally the scholarships are awarded at the end of the year in which they are applied for, but this year it was decided to present them on Anzac Day. And although Anzac Day memorial services will continue for many years to come, this year will mark Nolene's last post with the Clutha District RSA Welfare Committee.
Oh, look, I think it's an absolute credit to your support to the community, and I'd actually like to be able to do it for another 40 years too.
I'm Samuel White for The South Today.
A record number of men, women, children and canines showed up for Dunedin's annual Town Belt Traverse recently. Over 800 people brought their bicycles, prams and pets to the free event, which is part of the Wild Dunedin Festival. Participants could download an interactive map to learn more about the history and biodiversity of the area.
Some were very eager to get going on their trip at Dunedin's Town Belt Traverse.
What do you reckon?
The 8.2 kilometre walk started at the Southern Cemetery, ending at the Woodhall Gardens.
This is our third one. We do it every second year. and this one's been by far the biggest one we've had. Last time we had 600, so we're really rocking it on.
The route was open to bicycles, prams, animals and pirates.
I've heard about it for a while now, and we live in the area and really wanted to see what it was about.
The kids are just down for the school holidays, so we thought we would participate today, and I said to them, well, let's dress up. So we looked in my dress up goodies last night, and then I just realised there was an extra hat stuck on this one, so I've got a hat to wear as well.
Organisers handed out free Easter eggs, and there were also prizes to be won at each of the 5 stop-off points.
So it's a free event, it's a family event, and I think it's accessible to people. That's what we're here for. So the other thing too is this is an event where people can bring their dog on a lead with their plastic bag, and there are very few of those around.
Dunedin is one of only 3 Victorian town belts in the world. The Dunedin Amenities Society has added the Toitu Gold Trail to the event from Queen's Gardens to Maori Road, where walkers can follow the course of the stream Toitu and the route miners would have used on their way to the central Otago goldfields. The Botanic Gardens Trail links the historic Northern Cemetery, Brackens View and Lovelock Avenue. Roselle Labone, The South Today.
After the break on Southern Newsweek, concerns are shared over Queenstown's reputation regarding the negative impact from illegal freedom camping. And Arrowtown turns it on for the 33rd annual Autumn Festival. Welcome back. A Queenstown business owner has added her voice to the call for a tougher line on freedom camping. Ernest Speaker Boss believes Queenstown's reputation as the country's premier tourist resort is on the line because of the negative impact from illegal freedom camping. Mina Amso reports.
This is a common sight in Queenstown. A freedom campus tents parked in the Queenstown Lakes District Council's owned Lake Hayes Reserve without a self-containment permit. On this occasion being dealt with by a Queenstown Lakes District Council security patrol.
It's only self-contained.
Parking on yellow lines on public roads, dumping dirty water and sleeping in the open on private property is becoming more common now. Owner of Creekside Holiday Park, Ernest Speaker says freedom campers are affecting the safety of the local community.
It is a concern for the community. They don't know who's sleeping on their streets. And if there is any issues, we don't know where to go, what to do. Personally, for myself, I've now, this year alone, had 3 instances at my private home of people coming in and defecating on the lawn and in the garden, and that's not how I plan to spend my retirement years, cleaning up other people's poop in my garden.
The council says they are enforcing $200 instant fines payable within 28 days. They are clamping freedom campers on 2 sites. They are investing in education and working with rental companies and their national counterparts on a solution. The council also issued over 1,700 infringement tickets between Christmas and April this year alone. That's 20% more than last year. However, Speaker Boss questions whether the council is doing enough.
Council puts a budget to those sorts of activities and rely on the any tickets that are issued being paid to top up that budget so that the community's not wearing the cost. And sadly, the overseas visitor leaves the country before they pay.
We're going out in the early evening to remind would-be freedom campers that the area that they're in requires their vehicles to be certified self-contained, that we are patrolling there, that we will be coming back in the early hours of the morning, we'll be issuing infringements, and that you are in a clamping area.
It is education, but it's also enforcement, and the more the enforcement, I think a good hard hit at enforcement for a couple of years would change the idea.
So they are clamping cars?
Absolutely.
The council introduced freedom clamping in this area since Christmas last year. However, the council figures show only 1 vehicle has been clamped since Christmas.
It's often been suggested if you catch them, fine them $5,000 and deport them, 2 or 3 deported, and we're probably have solved much of the problem.
Certainly deportation, we don't have the capability or the legal enforceability to deal with that.
With the arrival of winter, the issues of illegal freedom camping is likely to ease, but the trend appears to be for Queenstown to have more freedom campers in future, bringing, no doubt, the potential for more problems. Mina Amso, The South Today.
Civil Aviation Authority investigators visited Queenstown Primary School recently to piece together how Scottish paraponter Ben Latham fell to his death. Initial reports suggest the canopy on the 26-year-old's parapont collapsed and he became tangled in the cords. The death of the G-Force paragliding pilot, who has lived in Queenstown for over 5 years, prompted tributes from Queenstown's paragliding community. G-Force Paragliding has suspended operations and co-director Gavin Taylor says the team is devastated. Arrowtown is welcoming autumn with its 33rd annual Autumn Festival. The festival began with a performance by the Arrowtown Primary School Kapahaka group, followed by local entertainment and of course lots of colour, food and wine. Mina Amso was there.
Arrowtown Primary School Kapahaka group entertained crowds in Arrowtown yesterday with their performance at the first night of the Arrowtown Autumn Festival. The 6-day festival will be jam-packed with events and entertainment for children and adults, like the village scarecrow competition.
It's traditionally been all about the harvest, so it's a pretty, March and April are really hard time, or not hard times, but everyone's working really hard to make the festival, make the harvest work around here, especially all the vineyards. So it's just a great time for all those people from the country to come in and let their hair down, really.
With the pie, pint and Pinot on Sunday already a sellout.
I mean, it's run by a committee of volunteers, so everybody just gives their all really to, to make this event really, really successful. So, and we've got great weather, so perfect.
These Arrowtown friends seized the opportunity to sell their homemade cupcakes at the festival.
I'm actually excited about crunching the leaves on the ground. I'm quite looking forward to the duck race. It's on Sunday, I think, and you get a duck for $10 and you race it down a river.
One of the nicest things about the Autumn Festival is, of course, the colours. The festival is expected to attract locals and visitors over the coming few days. Mina Amso, The South Today.
After the break on Southern Newsweek, Hampton residents scare away vandals near the Hampton War Memorial, and a road trip of cars that run on less than the smell of an oily rag. Welcome back. A Hampton man says he recently scared off 2 people using metal detectors and digging holes around the Hampton War Memorial. Resident of the Otago town, Tim Lockerbie, describes the behaviour as disrespectful and abhorrent.
It's about paying respect and not tomb raiding. A few weeks ago, Hampden locals Tim Lockerbie and Vanessa Hendry were driving near the memorial grounds just off State Highway 1 when they saw 2 men fossicking around the site. Tim Lockerbie says they thought the pair's behaviour was odd at best, so they pulled over to ask what the men were doing.
He told me he was looking for old coins, and I thought I said to him, this is not really a place to digging up the ground. It's like going over someone's grave. So I pretty much told him to have some respect and piss off.
He says the memorial is greatly significant to Hampden locals, as many of the family members fought and died in war.
Well, a lot of the people that lived here died abroad, and quite a few of the families and relatives still live here, and it's a place they can come to pay their respects.
Lockerbie felt so strongly about the men's actions, he took note of their vehicle's registration plate and passed it to Hampden Police. Daryl Baser, The South Today.
These cars leaving Invercargill last week run on less than the smell of an oily rag. To promote electric vehicles, the Leading the Charge road trip of around 20 electric and hybrid vehicles is travelling from Bluff to Cape Reinga. The road trip stopped in Invercargill, allowing car enthusiasts a close-up look at the range of electric vehicles now available. It's the third year for the nationwide road trip, featuring a variety of Tesla Model S supercars, Nissan Leafs, Mitsubishi and BMW electric vehicles. 5 restored or new Chinese headstones near Alexandra have been unveiled in the culmination of a project which seeks to amend some of society's failings. In the gold rush days, Chinese miners were treated poorly by Europeans. However, a project to restore or replace Chinese miners' graves hopes to pay tribute to their contribution.
Chinese goldfields historian Leslie Wong unveils a restored headstone, one of many being restored or replaced thanks to donations from the Chinese Poll Tax Heritage Trust and Dunedin's Wong family. Alexandra historian Jeff Sawyers is also helping drive the project and says it's important to honour the contributions of the miners.
This is important to me because the history of Central Otago is so unique relative to the rest of New Zealand. The gold mining times were amazing, and people should know about sort of what's happened in the past, and a big part of that were the Chinese that made the history that much more richer.
The project is being led by Jeff Sawyers and supported by Chinese goldfields historian Leslie Wong. Another 4 new headstones have been made from stone shipped from China and mark previously unmarked graves in an area at the Alexandra Cemetery thought possibly to contain another 18 Chinese graves. Pam Jones, The South Today.
And finally, about 100 protesters recently marched against